how do you guys go with the decision making of, all right, we're going to test this new channel, and then have you guys tested a channel and also turned it off? Maybe you can give a couple of experiences there.
I think in general, we always lean towards what we can measure. We're getting to a point where we do want more top of funnel, and Meta's getting more challenging. And so TV's been a really great test. I think just stepping back, there's a reason that huge percentage of advertising spend still goes into TV today, even for major brands. And we think there's a good share of voice and impressions we can get there. And so launching one major new channel at a time is really important to see the effect of how it may affect the business. And in a perfect world, you're driving top of funnel from TV, and maybe Meta becomes more efficient over time.
Welcome back to another episode of Chew on This. Today we have Jordan Nathan, who is CEO and founder of Caraway, your favorite kitchenware products. And today he's here to share his journey of building Caraway as not only a household name, but also into products that he helped design and create from the ground up. So Jordan, for the few people who don't know you, why don't you give a little bit about your background and where Caraway is today for our audience?
Perfect. Well, first off, thanks guys for having me on the podcast. Super excited. Big fan of the show. So yeah, we launched Caraway back in 2019. We're about 5 years old, and it's definitely been a journey. Prior to Caraway, I actually started my first company straight out of college. Was developing an e-commerce platform. Wanted to create a marketplace for D2C brands in the early, 2010, 2011. You started seeing the Harrys, the Warby Parkers, et cetera, launch, and felt that there's a unique opportunity to build a marketplace around consumer brands that people want to shop directly, and had a great experience trying to fundraise, build a tech product. Building a two-sided marketplace was really challenging, and unfortunately that one didn't make it, but had a lot of good learnings. And following that, joined a company called Mohawk Group, which, funny enough, worked with Ash for a couple of years. We sat at the same desk. And it was a kind of a brand Amazon aggregator that owned a number of brands across a variety of categories. I was brought on to lead their kitchen brand, Vremi. Had the really amazing experience to launch a couple hundred products under that brand. We did sell primarily on Amazon, spent a lot of time in Asia sourcing and developing products, learned PPC, all kind of marketing tactics, supply chain, and coming out of Mohawk, really wanted to kind of start my own thing. And one experience that I really held on to in my time building Vremi was I actually was doing a product test with a Teflon coated fry pan. I brought it home one night to test. I put it on my burner, left it there for about 45 minutes accidentally with the flame on, no food in the pan. My apartment actually filled with fumes, and I got sick from those Teflon fumes. I called poison control. They let me know that I was likely exposed to Teflon poisoning as I was feeling flu-like symptoms. And kind of following that experience, started diving into the materials in kitchenware, found out how toxic Teflon was and microplastics were, and having the experience in the category, wanted to create something focused on clean materials, and kind of selling within the category for a couple of years at my prior role. If you look back 5 years ago within the kitchen category, most products were black or stainless steel or white, and there wasn't a big design element. And a lot of the brands that did sell were pushing you to be a professional chef. And so I love this idea of creating clean materials, high design, and easy to use products for the consumer.
It's incredible. Well, first of all, thank you for that background, and give us a little bit of the journey into what started as a concept for Caraway and what these kind of 5 years of that journey looks like.
Yeah, it's been a crazy journey so far. So we launched in late 2019. We launched with our core product, our cookware set. So at the initial start, we wanted to build a set-based business, keep it really simplified. You come to the site, we've done the curation for you, kept it really simple in terms of choice. Fast forward 5 years, we're now still majorly direct to consumer, but we do have a big Amazon business. We're in about 20 retailers, both online and in store. And while we started with cookware, we've since launched food storage, bakeware, knives and utensils, tea kettles. So a big part of the growth strategy has been product expansion and distribution expansion, and have really kind of kept to the same mission of clean products, easy to use, high design.
I feel like towards the end of 2019, beginning of 2020 was kind of when COVID happened, and I'm sure everybody was at home. Everybody was trying different recipes, cooking. What was that time like for you guys? I'm sure it was almost like a kickstart to the brand.
Yeah, well, it's probably the best growth hack that happened to Caraway. I think when COVID first kind of occurred and we started hearing about it, definitely a scare as a new brand. 3 months in, how would this affect us? At that point, we were actually in an office with our first 3 employees, forced to kind of build a remote company and culture. And today we're about 75 to 80 employees remotely. And really what happened during that period was, people are sheltered in their homes. They started cooking more. And for our category, I'm sure the same for you guys as well, we really saw a lot of momentum in the kitchen space. And I think as well, people focused on their health and getting rid of non-toxic materials and maybe bringing more individuality into their homes. And so COVID was a really interesting period for us because we saw a ton of high growth. And then you paired that with a lot of challenges on the supply chain. Freight costs went up. We started to have to place orders 12 to 15 months out just to secure inventory. For most of 2021, I believe, we were actually selling on a back order model. So you come to the site, we'd have a 6 to 8 week ship time, like you're buying a couch. And you'd kind of have to buy then to purchase. So it was a great accelerant. And I do think for the long term, really spurred interest in, I think, consumer culture and cooking at home more, cooking more healthy. And, while I think some of those same growth trends maybe don't exist today, I do think COVID did accelerate the market.
What were some of the kind of launch strategies for the brand? Did you guys go straight into paid? Did you start with influencer? How did that look like?
Yeah, so at launch, one of our biggest kind of launch strategies was we built, I think it was 100 to 150,000 person wait list prior to launch. And basically what we did to build that list was we were doing a bunch of giveaways with other brands where we'd get 5 other brands. We put up a landing page. We typically were the host and contributing cash because we didn't have products at that point. And essentially getting every brand to blast out the giveaway to their audience and email lists. And with the opt-in, everyone gets the shared kind of email list. So that was a really great hack to kind of get an early audience. Once those people did join our list, we brought them on the R&D journey. Started teaching them about the brand. And so when we launched, we had a nice little bit of a community who was excited to try the product. We did a big influencer push at launch. Kudos to our PR firm for kind of pushing us into that tactic. I believe within the first launch week, we had about 100 or 200 influencers post. And it created this really nice halo effect paired with really strong PR talking about the brand. And then when it came to paid channels, we started out really small. Facebook retargeting, some Google for demand capture. And just as a kind of growth principle in our first 2 years, I think a lot of brands will go out and launch a bunch of channels at once, and then you don't know what's actually driving growth. We took a really methodical approach of launching basically one channel every 3 to 6 months, scaling it, making sure we saw the impact before adding on a new channel.
Smart, very smart. I want to touch on, I think one piece that always impresses me more when it comes to the influencer space is when you have brands that have really heavy products that cost, just higher, relatively speaking, than, let's say, a supplement brand. Talk through that strategy a little bit, because, we can go a little bit wider and say, hey, we want to work with 1,000 influencers and maybe our cost per shipment is $10, right? Your cost per shipment is not $10. So maybe working with 1,000 isn't obviously maybe the strategy, but talk me through, like, how do you guys identify some of the elements of, like, what goes into, yes, this is a person that's going to get X amount of dollars worth of product for free, not a cheap cost. And how do you guys have gone through that? And if any learnings that come from that would be great to know.
Yeah, I think there's some benefits and drawbacks of having a high AOV. And the influencer landscape has changed over the years. So I'll kind of talk through a little bit of how that strategy's evolved. When we first launched, we leaned more into affiliate-based influencer partnerships. And the benefit of having a high-priced item is a lot of folks just want the product and they'll take it for free to post. And so at one point, I believe our ambassador program reached about 3,000 individuals. That was all affiliate based. Wow. A lot of those folks we gifted, and depending on how we tiered it out or their audience, maybe some folks got a cookware set, maybe others got just a fry pan if they were a bit smaller. And so kind of choosing who you work with, you need to be a little bit more thoughtful with, because the cost is high to ship that product, but you do get the benefit of maybe not having to pay a flat fee to work with the influencers. So I think that was a big advantage for us early with building affiliate. And one of the ways we've continued to activate that group is through newness and launching new products and colors. And, for those who perform well, we're able to gift them more so that they're building out their Caraway kitchen. And as we all know, food content is one of the highest, engaged content on the internet and social platforms. And working with influencers, if you're going to post about what you're cooking or your home or your kitchen, you might as well try to monetize it. And so we've really leaned into that strategy. I think as social has really evolved and influencers have really grown their audiences, that model's changed a bit. So today we still have our ambassador program, but we also do a lot of paid flat fees. And when it comes to gifting, it's a bit harder. We can't go and just gift 1,000 people in a month and hope they post. I think as a brand, we are trying to gift more. If you have a kitchen and you have cookware, which is practically everyone, we want our products showing up, within Instagram and TikTok. But we have to be a little bit more methodical about who we gift and how much we gift per month.
And how are you guys tracking kind of success here? Is it strictly, revenue focused? Are you guys looking at, total impressions on a CPM basis? Like what's important for you as the brand?
I think early days, very revenue focused. We still are today, and we try to use affiliate links as much as we can. Of course, consumers may skip the link and go right to the site. So we do rely on our post-purchase survey quite heavily. And then I'd say as of recent, we are becoming more open to kind of impression-based posting, where maybe we know that all folks aren't coming through the link, but we're okay because there's a big reach there and we can measure it on the post-purchase side. I think we're of the belief that if someone's posting, whether they have 20 followers or, 1 million, it's a net benefit, and we want people talking about Caraway. And so I think we're becoming a little bit more liberal with how we measure success. As well, one area we've been really interested in is tapping into our actual consumer base. And, while they may have small, followings, their voice is extremely powerful.
Makes sense. I'm also curious in terms of, we talked a little bit about influencers. Have you guys also chartered up towards like celebrity or maybe B-list celebrity? Have you gone and played in that arena at all? And if so, how have those experiences been?
We have a little bit. We do a lot of gifting to celebs, and we've gotten a lot of, fortunately, organic posts from it, and tags, which has been great. I will say follower count is not, at least for us, and I'm sure you guys have had the same experience, doesn't necessarily translate into sales. And so a lot of times smaller influencers to mid-size perform the best. And I think the one thing we found is you want influencers who really love the product, they really stand by it, versus, hey, I'm just going to post this one time from getting the item. So we've done some celeb posts. We've had mixed results. I don't know why. I don't know if you guys gift to this audience, but like the Bachelor contestants and Bachelorette do really well for us. And I think as a brand, one interesting tactic we've really applied is, and this is evolving today, but when you think of cookware, you think of food and kitchen influencers. We specifically avoided food influencers for the first couple of years. We focus more on home design, lifestyle, influencers who are really into materials, parents. We're now just kind of making our way into the food world. But we really found our niche by focusing on audiences that some of the other brands were ignoring.
Makes sense. I mean, all the other big name brands, right? Your Hexclads and everybody. When you look at a cooking video, it's like almost Hexclad for most of this or some of these other brands, but you're almost hitting an alternative audience who, I mean, the basis of the brand was to have cleaner, material, to have the aesthetic that fits into,
Exactly.
a nice kitchen or whatever it is. So I think that makes a ton of sense. I want to talk about kind of the channels that you guys are in, right? So you have your DC business, you have Amazon, you said you're in retail. One of the biggest struggles that I think we're starting to have now is trying to assess what success looks like for certain campaigns when you have all of these channels to kind of consider when it comes to the effectiveness of these campaigns. How are you guys handling attribution, or how are you guys assessing what success actually looks like when you have to account for all these different channels?
Yeah, it's a major conversation we're actively having internally, and I don't know if there's a perfect answer, but when we launched Caraway, we knew we were going to be an omni-channel brand, at least in our category. Customers are buying kitchenware when they're in the registry process. They might be having a baby and want to move to non-toxic materials. They just bought a new home, and so a lot of those consumers are going to Crate and Barrel and Target, and we want to meet the consumer with where they are. And so very early on, we started doing dropship relationships with a lot of partners, which also helped us suss out like who we sell well with, who we like working with. And from a lot of those organic relationships, we've moved in stores with a handful of them. I think over time, attribution's gotten a lot more challenging. I think what we can say is a lot of our Meta, Google direct mail spend drives all channels, and we actually ran some incrementality tests over the past year that proved that a lot of our ad spend on Meta is actually translating into Amazon now. And now we're running top of funnel TV, and those customers are going to Google, and then they're clicking on Amazon because it's one of the first links that they see. And so we do look at marketing spend per channel, and we set return on ad spend targets per channel, which is great. I think the challenge with that is, are we actually restricting spend because we're not capturing it in those numbers? So curious to get your guys' take, but heading into next year, we're starting to think about really looking at a more holistic return on ad spend across the brand. And probably the best way to test it is to take X amount of money and just plow it into ad spend 1 month and see if all channels rise. Right. And then I think when it comes to retail, impossible to track, if that person was influenced from a customer. We hope they come back to the site to purchase, but it's really difficult to track. But one of the things we've constantly heard from our buyers, and I think Target's been a really good case for this, is when we launched with them a couple of years ago, we started on an end cap. We weren't in the cookware section, and people were just walking by the product, and the end cap did really, really well. And the constant feedback we kept getting from the buyers is they were hearing from consumers that they were walking by the end cap, and consumers were commenting, oh, that's the brand that I've seen on Instagram. And so we do think our ad spend is driving success everywhere. It's just, how do you track it, right, and how do you manage that spend if you can't pull in all the data?
Chew on This is sponsored by. If you're juggling your marketing ops between different platforms, then listen up. Ash and I were in the same boat as you were not too long ago. We were using an email service provider and an external SMS provider to manage over 200,000 customers. With numerous email flows like post-purchase, abandoned cart, win-back automation funnels, running these communications on several platforms was killing our potential impact because we just didn't know how to optimize the process on each channel. We needed a new approach, so we reached out to our community. The #1 recommendation was SendLane, so we had to check it out. And let me tell you, it's surprised us on every level. They took over the entire migration process, transferring data, forming up emails, and making sure that we didn't miss a beat. And now with their Move Now, Pay Later offer, it's easier than ever. You pay nothing up front, no hidden fees, and no unexpected bills. So if you're worried about the cost, the disruptions, or the sheer amount of work it's going to take to migrate your current marketing ops, SendLane takes care of everything, and you don't pay until they're done. We highly recommend SendLane, and since we've moved, we've seen incredible ways to optimize all our channel strategies in one place. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Are you guys measuring things more so like in platform? Are you using like an attribution tool at all?
We do look in platform. We use House, which we like for attribution and incrementality testing. And so constantly tinkering there. And the way we optimize spend daily is we have a tracker that looks at daily sales for the past couple of years. We look at what the media mix is within each given day. And we've got a pretty good sense of what drives, spend and attribution.
Love that.
Are you, when it comes to, we're talking a lot about these different channels and you guys looking at things more holistically and omni-channel in general. You mentioned, you're running top of funnel with TV right now. I'm sure maybe you've tested out of home with like trucks or maybe not. But I'm curious, when you go outside of the Googles and the Facebook and the Metas and even TikTok to some extent and Amazon, when you go into these alternative channels, how do you guys make that decision? And how is because I feel like a lot of brands we speak to, and even internally, when we're thinking about going and testing some of these channels that feel obscure, feel like they're going to have even less clarity into attribution. And I like what you said, which is you want to be where your consumers are thinking about shopping or thinking about the products that you guys are selling. But how do you guys go with the decision making of, all right, we're going to test this new channel. And then have you guys tested a channel and also turned it off? Maybe you can give a couple of experiences there.
Definitely. So I think in general, we always lean towards what we can measure. We're getting to a point where we do want more top of funnel, and Meta's getting more challenging and we need to reach more audiences. And so TV's been a really great test. I think just stepping back, there's a reason that a huge percentage of advertising spend still goes into TV today, even from major brands. And we think there's a good share of voice and impressions we can get there. And so I think with any channel, launching one major new channel at a time is really important to see the effect of how it may affect the business. And in a perfect world, you're driving top of funnel from TV and maybe Meta becomes more efficient over time. Right. We're using post-purchase surveys to measure where people came from or heard about us. We also like to think about where our customer is. And so we actually recently tested trucks, which we've had high skepticism on, but the partner that we're using had a really kind of data-driven approach. And so we liked the kind of trackability that came with it. And we chose markets that we knew our customers were in and net new customers that we wanted to reach. So we're actually renewing those trucks.
Oh, really?
Nice.
Hard to measure, but we do feel like it's not hurting. I think when you're running those channels, though, and you can't measure it, you do need to be careful with how you're allocating all your media, because you might need to take Meta down or Google down or some of your other channels, and you might not see that immediate impact. The other thing that's been really interesting is we've run surveys to consumers on when did they hear about the brand. And a huge percentage of our customers who are buying today heard about us a year or two ago. And so as we think about building the Caraway brand, we need to make sure.
That's a cool survey concept.
Yeah.
When did you hear of us?
We really need to make sure that when they're in the market for kitchenware, they think of us, but they may not be in that market exactly today.
Okay.
I want to go back to TV because it's something we've been toying around with and would love your take on it. But how much actually goes into building out a campaign specifically for TV, right? It's not, or at least I assume it's not your typical, creative that you're running on Meta. It has to be, I think, more polished, a little bit more brand focused. But take us through what that kind of conceptualizing what it looks like and kind of getting it live.
Yeah, so our first test in TV actually went absolutely terrible. We tried, I think back in 2022, we shot this beautifully branded video, probably the most expensive piece of content that we've ever spent on. We ran it for a couple months. It was just awful. It was like a 0.2 ROAS. Was just a huge money sink. And I think the learnings there were, there was no CTA or really call to action. It was just a beautifully branded video, and maybe that felt good to consumers, but I don't think was conversion focused. And so as we've kind of retested, we've kind of found a blend of how do we take our common style UGC, someone talking at the camera that works really well for us on Meta, but do it a little bit in a more polished way, and then cut in some content from ads that we've seen be successful.
Oh, that's cool.
And so that's worked really well for us. And when it comes to kind of testing, similar to podcast advertising or direct mail, I think the trouble with TV is there's a fixed cost and it's expensive to first test. So you need to make sure your budgets are there and you're comfortable with that investment. And it's something that takes probably 6 to 12 months to dial in. But when you first start, you need to run that ad across multiple channels and audiences to see what actually works so that you can narrow in the strategy. You might run across 20 different shows and maybe 2 or 3 hit and the other 17 flop. And so it is something that takes time to really dial in and test. And, who knows, by the end of the test, the creative may have fatigued as well. So we're kind of at that point where I think we know what channels work for us and what audiences. Mm-hmm. And now it's just pumping in new content. But we have found that a little bit more scrappy content that is slightly polished has performed best for us.
Are you focusing more on linear than connected?
That's right.
Yeah, makes sense.
Very cool. So I think one piece that obviously with your background too, with Mohawk and the exposure you've gotten is Amazon, and I think it'd be awesome to jump in there because I think it's this one topic that has so many different angles of conversation. I still meet brands that are just like, oh, we're staying off that platform completely, and then you have brands that are like, hey, Amazon's like our top driver in sales. I'm curious. When did Amazon come into the picture for you guys? Was it from day one? And how has it evolved for you guys? How important of it is it something that you guys are talking about every day and making sure that you're improving every day, or is it, hey, let's just make sure it maintains? Curious on just your guys' approach with Amazon.
Yeah, so we launched Amazon March of 2022. It's funny, when I came into Caraway, I was like, we're absolutely not doing Amazon ever. I hate the platform. It is a cutthroat platform where you get copied, you get arbitrageurs, your listings get taken down, people buy inventory, ship it back, and Amazon messes up the consumer experience. And so we did avoid it for a while, and I think we got to a point where we started going wider in distribution. Maybe we were in Target and some retailers that I think were more mass. And the thing that really convinced us to test was we found out that about 40,000 people a month were searching for Caraway.
Yeah.
And that was a really interesting statistic to us. And at that point, I believe we were at the peak of freight costs. And so we were also looking for channels that could be more profitable. And interestingly, Amazon actually had better margins for us than our D2C business, particularly because you don't have to spend the same amount of ad spend, and contribution margin would be higher at the end of the day. So we ended up just throwing up the products with no real strategy. We brought on an agency, they set up the listings. First month was really strong, next month doubled, and it really started taking off. The interesting thing we did at the beginning was we actually priced all of our products about 10% higher. We were really nervous about Amazon cannibalizing the site. And so, interestingly, people were still buying. They wanted the convenience.
Yep.
And then after about a year, Amazon caught on. We started losing the buy box, and we had to shift, I think, in 2023 back to normal pricing. And when that happened, Amazon started skyrocketing, but our site also started to experience some slowness and some flatness. We were trying to figure out what was happening, and we ran some incrementality studies. We found out that a lot of our D2C spend was translating onto Amazon. So it's become a really meaningful channel. It's north of 30% of the business today.
Wow.
And interestingly, we probably have 75 to 80 employees now, all focused on D2C, and we have an agency running Amazon, and me and some of our growth team providing strategy, and that's it. And so it's grown really well. I think there's a lot of opportunity. And one conversation heading into next year is, how do we create kind of an influencer fleet that just focuses on Amazon? How do we create a subset of affiliates that just drive to Amazon and start leveraging all the assets we've built and levers to drive to that channel?
Cool. I know when we worked together at Mohawk, the strategies that we leverage to get organic ranking, some of those are, I think, no longer able to be used, right? They're more considered black hat now. But I think for any brand that is running meaningful spend on Meta or any paid platforms, being on Amazon, I think will capture an audience that may not even buy from your website, right? There's buyers who will only buy if it's on Amazon. So I think having a channel open makes sense. But with that being said, a majority of your sales end up just being people searching for your brand, right? And so I'm curious your guys' strategies now to kind of capture, people that are looking for suggestions on, cookware. Like, how are you guys ranking, or the strategy to rank organically for, these big keywords like cookware versus just kind of going after the branded searches?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really both. We do acquire a lot of new customers based on the data that we see. And, I think we take a belief of we want the customer to purchase where they're most comfortable. And as we've grown the channel, we haven't put a lot of emphasis into kind of organic tactics. We run our PPC ads, we do test video on the platform, we make sure the listings look great, and then we let the algorithm do the work. Hopefully our sales are driving enough that our BSR ranking's going up. And I think there's a lot of work to do on organic, which can come naturally. Yeah, it's been really successful for us. And I think as a channel, the one thing we're trying to figure out is how do we get someone to come back to our site from Amazon? But we do feel like we do acquire a lot of new users from the platform. Unfortunately, Amazon can't see if they've purchased on our D2C sites, right? So Amazon will coin them as a new customer. But I think the one benefit of being on Amazon, half of e-commerce converts there. I think it's not a necessary strategy to launch with a business. I think you want to build a brand first. But the thing where there's major value is Prime Days are, what we call like our July holiday. And we had Prime Day yesterday, which is really successful for us. So you get to participate in those events, which are meaningful. And then I don't know if you guys experience this, but once you kind of get to the shipping cutoff for D2C at the back half of December, we start seeing a major spike on Amazon because customers trust it for the 2-day shipping.
Right.
So we like it for offsetting some of those moments, and both acquiring new customers, but also hopefully converting our customers that maybe are hesitant for buying on the site or at a retailer.
Makes sense.
Have you guys done any creative strategies around Amazon? With a lot of people are talking about, you can drive influencers with affiliate links now straight to Amazon. And within Amazon too, there's a lot of different programs like live shopping and whatnot. Just curious, given your guys' scale and stuff, have you had the exposure to testing some of those things, and have any of them really kind of stuck around or been part of the longer form strategy now?
I'd say a little bit. There's a lot more to do. We have had certain influencers that convert better on Amazon. So let's say we gift to them and they send to the site and they sell no products, or it's one unit. If they're willing to give us another try on a test, we might say, hey, redirect to Amazon, and we've seen some success there. Affiliate we're just getting into, but there are publishers we just found out about that strictly only run to Amazon, and we didn't have within our existing affiliate platform. So we're really excited for that. And then one initiative we actually just launched is we open a whole new ad set on Meta that we're running the same creative we run to our site, but we're going to start running it to Amazon and see if that potentially converts better. The nice thing too, when you're driving outside traffic to Amazon, is you get 10% of the sale price back. So it helps actually subsidize your ad spend of driving off platform to Amazon.
You get 10% of your sale price back from Amazon.
Yep. So if you're driving traffic to Amazon as a brand, Amazon gives you 10% back for driving that sale.
Oh, wow.
Is it like an affiliate?
They basically give you like an affiliate.
But to the brand directly.
To the brand.
Wow.
Interesting. I'll have to test that. You guys are just running like traffic campaigns?
Yep.
Yeah. And then on the back end, I think Amazon now has attribution to kind of measure.
They do.
Right.
I don't know how accurate it is, but it is some data. And then one thing we've been interested in testing, we haven't run it yet, is let's say someone's on the site, they don't purchase, we get them through the abandoned cart funnel. they don't purchase it yet, there's that buy with Prime button that you can add to your site. One tactic, I'll let you guys know how it goes, is driving them to a landing page at the end of like an abandoned cart funnel, putting the buy with Prime button and seeing if that gets them to convert.
I like that.
That's really, really
I
smart.
might have to implement that.
Yeah. That's actually really smart.
So we have Black Friday coming up, right? Q4, I would imagine, is a big time for you guys. Pretty giftable product. How does the strategy kind of change from the rest of the year going into kind of Q4? Do you guys start sales early? Do you kind of, keep it to Black Friday? What does that look like?
So we start our sale on November 1st. We run it to December 31st.
Nice.
Holidays is almost half the business. So it's a huge time, no room for error. And we think of each year as January through October, we're testing and we're building for holiday. And then holidays is the Super Bowl. It's time to execute, capitalize. And so I think our first year we maybe started the sale November 15th, and it got to a point where I was like, we might as well just start it early. Yeah. I don't think it dilutes the brand. People are expecting sales and we can get out in front of folks. And if there's stuff we want to test for offers on the site, let's get that out of the way the first 10 days of the month so that by BFCM, it's all dialed in. Yep. We're at a point where our BFCM offer, we've tested so many times and done so many A/B tests over the years. It's super dialed in at this point. So we do, I think it's 10%, 15 or 20% off select minimums. And our goal is to drive you to a higher AOV. And then last year we added a fourth tier where if you spend, I think, $1,000, you get a free $200 gift with purchase plus the 20% off.
Nice.
Wow.
So that model's worked really well for us. And then one thing we're trying this year, which is unique, is we're actually running our ad spend a bit more inefficient in September and October. Hopefully thinking that we're driving top of funnel now that'll convert in that period. And then with retailers, we match kind of the sales to the site, and same thing with Amazon.
Very cool.
How does the media mix change during Q4? Like, are you also spending more on TV? Are you kind of just pushing Meta at that point to kind of get everybody that you've been driving the rest of the year?
We're running more TV and top of funnel now and more direct mail. We send about 5 million mailers per month.
Wow.
And we actually dialed that back in November, December, because normally the mailers have a code on it and you can't use that code with the offer on site. So we try to build that demand prior. Meta and Google and TikTok are the core kind of levers in that period. Email, SMS, we're probably sending 2 messages out a day. And then December, we do typically pull back a bit. Even BFCM, we kind of go into every Cyber 5 with the debate of should we invest more, should we invest less, and does spending more actually convert? Because consumers come into the period with a target list of what they want to buy. They've probably seen the brand before, and so we're still kind of testing that out and dialing it in, but definitely pulling back on kind of the more top of funnel levers.
Makes sense.
Touch on direct mail a little bit. That's a lot of mailers. Any particular strategy you guys have dialed in that just works really well? Are you also doing acquisition with direct mailers?
So the majority of that is prospecting. So very similar to TV. It's a very long attribution process, about 3 months for each send. So we started direct mail maybe back in 2020. Started really small. We've scaled it up over time. We kind of sprayed and prayed to see what audiences convert. And it's been a really good channel. We can target recent movers, recent people who have gotten married, folks who maybe bought another brand that's non-toxic that we know they could be on a non-toxic journey. And then there's been really unique audiences that we would have never thought of. I forget the exact audience, but I think it's like men who are 50 in like Iowa. There's like, it's a 10,000 person audience, but it's like a 10x ROAS. And for some reason, that audience is converting super well for us, and that audience probably isn't on Meta or searching on Google. And so we found really successful pockets. I think what we're seeing now over time is we run a lot of the same content and creative, and it's starting to fatigue. So we have pulled back sends quite a bit. But we're at a point too where we have a big catalog and we're thinking about testing kind of trifolds and more catalogs to push the full line versus the cookware set, which a lot of customers already have.
One shift that we made this year was kind of going and expanding internationally. Found that obviously some of the English-speaking countries like your Australia, New Zealand, UK, Canada, once we kind of like opened up the spend there, we're getting a decent amount of spend there at decent, efficiency. If we can kind of optimize, shipping costs and things like that, it's a channel that we can really kind of focus on maybe in 2025. But I'm curious for you guys, do you guys go international? Assuming obviously with, heavy weights and shipping costs, it's a little tough, but is it something you guys have considered or actively pursuing?
So we have not really gone international. We do sell or sold with Indigo up in Canada for a little bit. We do have some plug-in on the site where if you want to purchase outside the States, you can. Our products are just really heavy. So our cookware box is 35 pounds. Surprisingly, people do pay $300 or $400 shipping to get it overseas. And so, I think looking at the numbers, I'm a bit shocked at how many people are paying to get it cross-border, but it's not meaningful, for the full business. So it's been a topic of conversation. Our team actually saw your post and it sparked a lot of internal discussion. And it's something of interest. I think we look at the US market, it's massive. We're a product first company. We have a huge R&D roadmap we want to roll out. And so it's really a question of when. I think one thing we're seeing in our industry is just a massive compounding focus on non-toxic materials. And the EU just announced they're banning all Teflon and most consumer products. And so we're considering pulling it up. I think the big just challenge for us is the products are big and then people cook differently in every country. So the shapes that they use, the products that they use might be different. EU stoves are much smaller than US stoves, so our baking sheets don't fit in there. And so as we think about it, there needs to be a little bit more of a thoughtful product strategy versus like, hey, this is what's going to work over there because it worked here. I don't think it's quite one-to-one.
Right. Can't just flip on the ad set.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I'm super, I know we're coming in on time, but I really want to unpack a little bit of how you've built a 80-person remote team. And, part of it, I feel like many of these remote teams that have been able to, were a little bit forced into having to build it because of COVID. But obviously you've thrived and you've built and scaled a team. Any like hacks you can give on what makes it so successful for you? And how do you manage it? Is it a ton of Zoom calls all week? Or do you just have a really good management structure?
I think it's got its drawbacks and its benefits. I think if we were to go back prior to COVID, we would have been an in-office company and culture, and we were kind of forced into this. And but virtual has worked for us. I think importantly, you need to vet for that in the hiring process. You want people who want to work from home. We have a lot of employees who travel around the world and work, and it's a better work-life balance for them. And I think we're able to capture talent that maybe others aren't because we're virtual. I think in terms of kind of building, the culture and performance, one thing we've put a big emphasis on internally is setting really clear objectives and goals. So every year we create like a theme for the company that we want to focus on, and we've got like our North Star and our OKRs, and quarterly we set those per team, per individual, and that's a really critical, I think, aspect to any company, but especially when you're virtual, is making sure everyone knows what they're working towards and what the company's working towards. Because if you're not in person and you're not constantly discussing it, it's really hard to kind of build into the culture. And so we put a big emphasis on goal setting, OKRs, and yes, a lot of Zooms, a lot of calls. We love Slack huddles to hop on. Okay. Yeah, I think getting people together as much as we can when we can. So it's been good. I think one major obstacle is a lot of our employees have never seen all the products that we sell. And so sometimes that might translate into marketing where, there might not be a feature that we market. And, I think that product process has been we've made work, but it's challenging, like shipping products around the country and Ubering them back and forth, and the team's launching something that they've never actually seen or experienced.
Do you guys do a lot of offsites, or has the team met up at certain points?
We actually just did our first one about 2 weeks ago.
Oh yeah,
which was awesome. About 95% of the company came, which was fun.
Wow.
That's amazing.
What'd you guys do?
We went to the Poconos for a couple days, did kind of workshops in the morning, and then it was really meant to be less work, more play, getting to know everyone, and it was an awesome time. Everyone came back really energized, and we did bring in every product so that everyone could see them finally. But yeah, it was an awesome event.
Very cool.
So we talked a lot about tactics, influencer marketing, Amazon. What's one thing that you would want the audience and listeners and viewers to kind of take back right now and implement into their business?
I would say cash flow is your most important KPI and growth lever. I think the one thing we've done really well at Caraway is make sure that every invoice and payment across the company is on minimum net 30, but pushing for net 60 plus terms, especially with our factories. And I think it's a metric that's just not talked about often. Your cash conversion cycle is so critical. And even if you're not profitable or you're break even and you can push out when payments are due and turn $1 into 10 before you actually have to pay for that invoice, it's a massive growth lever. And so kind of as we build our business, we have a big emphasis internally on building terms. We're willing to pay a couple % more if that means we get better payment terms. And, as you're growing, if you can have a really strong cash conversion cycle, you have infinite marketing spend technically, right? And you can, I think hire a little bit faster. And, I'd love to see kind of businesses working that more into their kind of core KPIs that they're looking at on a day-to-day basis.
Chew on that. Well said.
If you want more from us, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, follow us on TikTok, and check out the website chewonthis.io.